Hi, welcome to the first iPhone application development lab. In this exercise, what we're going to do is develop a very simple iPhone application, and we're going to show you how to use outlets and actions, and we're going to show you how to create some simple Objective-C code. So let's make a start. From the launch screen, choose Create a new Xcode project. And the idea here is you're going to choose a single view application, and that gives you the basic boilerplate code that you will need to develop an application from scratch. Now the product name is whatever you want to call the app, and the name appears on the home screen. So we're going to call this one Hello World. Now the organization name is entirely up to you, but the company identifier needs to be a reverse DNA, reverse URL, and I tend to use the university URL with my username attached to it, as you can see. Now the last bit of information is the class prefix, and this is the name it's going to add to the class name that it creates for you. So I'm going to call my first class Home View Controller. So if I type home in here, it will create a new controller called Home View Controller. I want it for the iPhone, so I choose iPhone for the drop down list. And I'm going to save it somewhere sensible. So I'm going to stick it on the desktop. Okay, right. So now we have our basic files that we need to create our first project. So let's make a start by adding the controls to the view. So we choose main storyboard from the list, and I'm going to toggle down to iPhone 4 height, and I'm going to add a few controls. So the controls are in the bottom right hand corner, and I need 3 controls. I'm going to use a label, which I'll place near the top. I'm going to have a text field, which I'll place underneath, and as you can see, Xcode handles the spacing for me. And I'm going to have a button, which I'm going to add underneath that, like so. So there's my 3 controls. What I now need to do is I need to connect those to the controller, and to do that I need to look at my public interface, my header file for my view controller, and display what we call a split view, a helper view. So I'm going to hit top right hand corner, hit the assistant editor, and as you can see on the left hand side I have my controls in my storyboard, and on the right hand side I have my header file. So now I'm going to connect my outlets and actions. So I press the control key down, that's very important, and I drag my label. Actually no, home view controller is wrong. I need the home view controller.h file, the header file. There we are, that's better. So I control drag from my label to my header file, and I want to create an outlet for it so I can change the contents of the label. And I'll call this one my label, like so. I need to do the same for my text field, control drag, for my text field, but the button needs to be what's called an action, which is going to create an event handler for it. So I control drag from the button to my header file. I'm going to call this one display name, that's the name of my method, and it's going to be an action. Now to save debugging time later, I know it's going to be a button that's going to be the sender, so I change it to UI button. The event is touch up inside, okay, which means you tap and then let go with your finger, and when I connect this up you will see it will create an action for me, like so. And the dots, the filled in dots, show which part of the view the actions and the outlets and the actions are connected to. So let's go back to the standard editor. And let's now switch to my implementation file. And as you can see right at the bottom, I have my display name methods being created for me. So let's do a bit of code now. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read whatever's typed into the text field, and I'm going to display it in a log message. So let's have a go at typing the code that does this. Now notice I have the asterisk there. That's because it's an object I'm creating, and objects are pointers. It points to a space on the heap. So my NSString object is going to be on the heap, and I'm now creating a pointer to the object, so I use the asterisk. And I'm going to reference the text field. Self.my text field. There's a reference. Self is the current control. Dot text. And that returns and then a string. Now I've got a warning at the moment, and the warning says unused variable, but that's fair enough. So I'm going to now log that, and we'll see what happens. Now the way the log works is we put a format string in, and then where I want to put a variable in, I put a placeholder. So percentage is the character that says it's a placeholder, and if it's an object, so I use the @ symbol. And now I have to place my parameter afterwards. And that should now display a log message which says my name is, and then whatever I type into the box. There's no need to save the files because Xcode will automatically save when you run. So let's now run this. And if I type in mark into the box and tap the button, if I look at my logs, you can see at the bottom, there we are, my name is Mark. So the message is being stored correctly in the variable. So now what I need to do, the final step, is I want to take that message and put it in the label. So to do that, I'm going to reference the label. Self.myLabel .text, that's the text property, that's the setter, equals message. And that will take the contents of the message variable and place it in the text property of the label. Let's see if that works. And as you can see, it's displaying the text I've typed straight into the label. So the final little tweak I think we'll do is we'll format it to say my name is, using the very similar formatting strings. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change how I'm creating this message variable. So let's comment this one out, and let's do it a slightly different way. And I'm going to use a class method of NSString. String with format, and I can use the same formatting strings here. So there's my format string, my message. So I'm going to whip that out and place it in there. And obviously I need to get rid of this bit of text there. Right. NSString message, NSString, string with format, my name is, and it's the variable is going to be self.my text field .text. There we are. So let's test the final test and see if it's going to work. And as you can see, formatting strings work when we create NSStrings as well. Okay, so that's the end of the first lab. Now you've completed that first lab, the first exercise rather, you should now be able to make a start on the first lab. Obviously you won't be able to do all the tasks in the lab, but you'll be able to make a start on them. and then next week we can complete the lab with the skills I'll show you in next week's lecture. Okay, thanks for watching and see you next week.